Hello, this is Chef Jacques from the Art Institute of Houston, and we're gonna see a couple of items of garde manger, and we are gonna deal with hors d'oeuvres, and particularly canapes and mignonettes. The canapes will be the one sitting on a toast. The mignonette will be sitting on something else, not a toast. That's the distinction between canapes and mignonettes when it comes to hors d'oeuvres. So, without further ado, let's get us started. So here we have sliced a Pullman loaf that we've already seen before. The Pullman loaf is the square rectangular loaf without too much holes in it that can be nicely controlled and sliced. You see the thickness here. You got to think that in the baking process, all dimensions of what you're going to cut is going to shrink a little bit during the baking process. So now I'm going to show you how to cut some squares and circles out of that. For the square, we're going to use perhaps, and then you will place them on a sheet pan liner, on top of a sheet pan. I never like to put any food on a bare aluminum pan. So always have some protection here. So these are your square toasts. That will be the base for your canapes. So we're gonna do the circles now. We have enough or need. You're preheating your oven at 350 degrees, just like for croutons. So it's a nice temperature that's not too hot, but that will really get those items crispy. So now we're going to do some little mini vol au vent, or also called bouchées, little bouchées for some mignonette. They will not be called canapes because the base will not be a toast. So instead it will be a little receptacle of puff pastry. This is puff pastry dough. That's most of that you will learn to make it in pastry, but otherwise you can purchase that already made, and a lot of it is already rolled in squares or sheets, and so you have it done. This is that puff pastry. That's layer of dough, layer of fat, layer of dough, layer of fat. So it's quite a process to make. It's better to work with it when it's semi-frozen, so don't pull out too much at a time. I like to pull out a sheet at a time. And what I like to do, I use a pan, flat bottom pan, and I like to cover it with parchment, and I like to put some drops of water like this, and I'm gonna show you in a minute what the water is for. Then I'll cut the base, and again, when you do this, you want to have as little waste as possible. So make sure that you cut those pieces close to each other. Remember, they're gonna shrink a little bit. They will develop in height, but they will shrink a little bit in diameter. So you do your bases first, like so. And then you cut the top part. You cut the top part like so, and you cut the interior, the inside of it, and again, that's why it's good to do it when it's semi-frozen still, so it doesn't lose its shape. There we go. Then you take the egg wash with a pastry brush. I like to use a soft pastry brush. I do not like those fly swatters, I call them, made of plastic, because they are too rough. I like really something that is nice and soft. My egg wash is just cracked eggs with a pinch of salt. I do not add water to it. Why? Because I do not want the egg wash to sink into the dough. So I flip it upside down, turn it around, and do this. And that's all gonna be a little bouchée. Voila. Then to build a more fancy schmancy, I'm gonna, where is that? Yeah, this way. So that does two things: garnish a little bit and apply it in place. So this works like this. Now I have preheated the oven at 425 degrees at least, between 425 to 450, because you want to really a lot of heat to bring them up, to get that steam building and developing those layers of puff pastry. And as it rises and rises, when it starts getting some colors, then I switch to another oven or to another temperature, depending on the type of oven you're using. And I want then to finish them in an oven at 350 so that they really bake all the way through. So you're gonna have a puff pastry, bouchées that will be nice and flaky and bake throughout. Another trick that I want to show you, this is some that were previously made that we used for this video, that was previously made. The other trick that I do is I take a piece of parchment paper and I spray it. I sprayed a piece of parchment paper and I put it upside down on the bouchées, and when they go in the oven, what that does is that it prevents the bouchées to rise in a crooked way. They all come up nice and straight and level, and you save a lot of the items that way. So this is ready to go in a 425, 450 degree oven now. Okay. Now these, after they got baked, we did poke the center, and then we're gonna be able to place the whatever filling that you have decided to have. We will work on in this case, on a chicken salad, a curry chicken salad with a little garnish, and that's gonna be our mignonette to present alongside with the other finger foods, the other hors d'oeuvres, the canapes. So these, the base for the canape, those toast, not croutons, because they are dry. They do not have any fat on them. So those bases are just came out of the oven, nice and crispy, just the right doneness. So they will add a nice crispy component to the canapes. So here we're gonna work on a mise en place for Gravlax Canapes, and this is the Gravlax that we've done a few weeks ago, and by curing our Atlantic salmons for 3 days in a mixture of salt and sugar. That will be another demo at some other point in time. But right now we're gonna slice it for the canapes. Slice it nice and thin, and then I use that plate with I cover it with film wrap, tight like a drum, and that helps retrieve it so it doesn't stick to the plate. Slice it as thin as you can, but where it does not fall apart. This is a very excellent product that we do in our lab. A couple of more slices will be enough for what we're trying to do. Here I use a sushi knife, however you could use a sharp chef knife as well, or a long slicer, non-serrated. And now for mise en place, we're gonna do the spread for the canape, which is the spread is very important. It's a critical aspect of canape. The spread is a mixture of 50-50% of butter and cream cheese, flavored with a little bit of dill or Dijon mustard. You can have different flavoring, but the base is the 50-50 butter and cream cheese. And what it does, it has several functions. One of them is to protect the crispy crouton from what food you're going to put on top of the canapé, so the croutons do not get soggy. That's the main function. Another function, it's a glue. It will keep things on top of it without having fall. It's also flavoring. It's also what I call lube, because it's kind of fatty a little bit, so it helps things go down. And so it has a lot of function. And finally, ultimately, you can use it with a peppercorn or small popping bag. You can use it for garnish on top. So here we are. We have a little bit of Dijon mustard here. And we got our soft cream cheese. I like to zap it in the microwave a little bit to get it soft. Same thing with the butter. And then I put them together. And I have already pre-chopped my dill here. So I put all my ingredients together. And a pinch of salt, a pinch of pepper, and then you mix the product together. Now, if you do a larger quantity, you may want to do it with a machine and a paddle. But you see, the trick to do things fast is that you zap your and not for long, 30 seconds I'm talking about. You don't want to melt your butter. You just want to make it pomade, which is kind of a soft butter. Okay? And look at that. So now you have a nice basic, and make sure there's no lump. And then also when you chop, when you mince your herb or condiments in there, make sure it's really fine, because if you want to use this with a popping cone, as I'm going to show you, you want to make sure it comes out smoothly at the end of the cone without lumps. So here I'm going to show you some mise en place as far as the garnish for our boucher, our curry chicken boucher in the vol au vent. And then so you wash your product, of course, and then what I like to do is what I call removing the angles. So I cut the ends, and these will be reserved for cooking. And then I do cut some flat surfaces this way. We're just gonna do one for our demonstration. And the next thing I do is I remove a lot of the meat from that pepper. That also can be reserved for cooking, for your ratatouille, or wherever you are using peppers. You really want something thin. So you almost reserve the skin. So keep it flat on the cutting board and your knife, so you don't cut into the skin. There we go. The next thing is you're gonna cut some strips. Look at what works best. I'm gonna switch knife here. And then I'm gonna square it off and cut little strips evenly. Even width. And then I do a little stairway. That's why it's important to cut it all the way through. Little stairway, nice and consistent. And then you cut your diamonds. And by doing them like this in series, that's how you can ensure the even size and shape. You cannot do them one line at a time, or they won't be consistent in shape and size. And when you do repetition, it's very important that they are all the same shape and size. So I'm gonna make some little fans with a cornichon for my garnish, for the ham Canape garnish. So I like to cut little rondelle like this, and then at an angle, back and forth. Angle, back and forth. Angle, back and forth. like this. Angle back and forth. Once I get the angle back and forth, those little wedges, if you will, I will take them like this, and with a small paring knife or this fine sushi knife, I do cut some little slits. And let me do this. I'm gonna do it for better view sideways so you can see better what I'm doing with that knife. So I'm cutting it toward me, and I'm cutting some little slits toward the point of the knife is toward the fat end of the wedge. And this way I can do a little fan thing. I'd like to have a little garnish like this so it doesn't overpower the canapé. So there we are. Gotta do a couple more. And then we'll go into cutting the ham. We already pre-sliced the ham. When you slice the ham, you slice it thicker. So I got those little guys here. That's good. And here we are with the ham canapé. You could use turkey canapé. You could use different meats. We could use also galantine that we do later in the quarter. Different meaty product. But here, simple. We're going to use a ham, a quality ham, and we are cutting it just a little smaller than the base. And the reason, you want to make sure that the client grab the base, not the ham. Make sure it's cut all the way through. For that reason, sometimes the ham wants to fight you a little bit. Voila. So this is the ham, and I already had checked for size. Now we have the little fans right there, and then we have our bag of we put the I put the mix, the spread for the canapé into a peppercorn. I just cut a little opening, and nice and neat. Nice and neat. I don't go all the way to the edge to keep it clean. Then I put my slice of ham. As you can see, it prevents the moisture of the ham to go and get your toast soggy, but it's also a glue. It keeps the pieces together. And flavor. And lubricant, lube, as I call it. So that spread has a lot of function. Also, now we're talking garnish. I use this as a garnish as well. You could leave it like this, but I'm gonna do a little point like this in the center, and I'm gonna add the little cornichon fin. On top. Some chefs like to use tweezers for some of this kind of delicate work. Okay? Voila. So it's important to be consistent. Everything has to look like coming out of a cookie cutter. Okay? People pay good money for these items. So now I'm going to show you how to assemble a few other items. I'm going to do the and now we're going to assemble the Gravlax Canapes. I'm going to open this a little more. Open the tip of the bag a little bit more, and I'm going to make a little rosette of the spread, and with the Gravlax here, I'm going to make a rosette, little rosette. Notice how the little bit of the vein, I keep it in the bottom. nice little rosette. Keep rolling it. There we go. Then we're gonna put a little dill garnish. Little dill garnish here. Of course, we would do, when we do canape, we don't do just a few, we do 20, 40, depending on the size of the crowd, and then we can use some larger platters to display, but that's give you an idea. Now we're gonna finish the, we're gonna assemble the mignonette, no longer a canape, but a mignonette, which is also an hors d'oeuvre, finger food, and that is the bouchées. So here are two bouchées. We have made a chicken salad here, curry chicken salad. You could do another filling, your favorite filling of sort. Don't overdo it on a mayonnaise dressing. But you could do a seafood one. Shrimp based salad, other type of salad, concept the same. All for these we're showing you the concept of a couple of items, and you can then interpret and change the product. Now we're going to use the diamonds that we did. Make sure the diamonds, the skin is on top, which is a shiny, smooth surface. And when you line them up on a tray or something, they should be facing the same direction. Everything has to be very, very consistent. So we got this here. I'm also going to show you a little something else. Later in the quarter, we do some mousseline. So we did a mousseline with chicken mousseline. So this is a mousseline that we did for a platter, and these can be used also for canapes. And they have their own garnish. Just leave it like this. It's a mousseline wrapped in a thin layer of carrots. Acting up. So, what did I forget? Of course, always have your moisture barrier, glue, and voila. So again, this one's got it doesn't need any other garnish than what it has already. It's already pretty garnished within. That's a chicken galantine wrapped with a thin carrot leaf. And let's do it this way. Yes. Voila. So here the three, 1, 2, 3, 4 examples of 3 canapes, 1 mignonette, all examples of finger food, hors d'oeuvres. Hors d'oeuvres that are served before outside the meal.